Na 20 jaar in verschillende sales- en managementrollen te hebben gewerkt in de corporate wereld, ben ik hiermee gestopt. En de zoektocht naar een nieuwe koers voor mezelf begonnen. Mijn naam is Edwin Rubens en met deze podcast wil ik mijn ervaringen delen en ook jou inspireren, motiveren en ondersteunen in die zoektocht. Ik bespreek het verwerkingsproces, mijn gezondheid, mijn zoektocht, het bouwen van een bedrijf, maar ook met mensen spreken die soortgelijke processen doorlopen hebben. Dat je een fijn leven krijgt, meer in balans bent door te gaan doen wat echt bij je past. Dat ontdek je soms pas als je de verkeerde afslag hebt genomen. Je voelt dat er iets niet klopt en het innerlijke knaag je uiteindelijk doet besluiten om het roer om te gooien.
Hello, lovely people. Welcome with a new episode of the podcast Rediscover. Actually, the Dutch word is Herontdekken. This is a very new, special episode because today I have a special guest, and you just heard something special from her. It's a lady. As you may know, and may you have seen on my social media channels, I have attended an event the last 3 days with Joseph McClendon. It's called A Factor. It was about self-development, personal development, mindset, energy, everything around that. And I got in contact with one of the ladies who is a girlfriend of one of the speakers on stage. And we got in the discussion during one of the lunch breaks, and we had a kind of connection. We had a kind of similarity, a kind of parallel processes in our lives. The way we experience things, the way we discuss things with people. And we decided on that day, actually yesterday, to record a podcast together. So I'm very proud, and it's very unique that they have an English-speaking lady from Bulgaria here. Her name is Totka Spasova. And yeah, Totka, very welcome in the podcast. It's a unique opportunity. We don't know each other. We know each other for 1 day.
Yes.
So welcome on the yellow couch.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to tell you that yellow couch is absolutely amazing and beautiful. So first of all, I want to say welcome to all the listeners and viewers. For me, it's an honor to be at the podcast called Rediscovery.
Yeah. Before you're going to introduce yourself, you did some research on Rediscover.
Yes, I did.
Because you asked me, what does it actually mean? And you figured it out. Can you explain a little bit for the listener what Rediscover actually means?
Yes. So for all the viewers and maybe the listener, they can hear that I'll be checking my phone, and I'm just going to read few of the meanings of the word discover. Okay? So the first meaning is to uncover. So uncover. That means something's been hidden, right? Uncover. So there's something on the top, right? And the second one is to disclose, to lay open to view, to make visible, to reveal, to make known, and to show. What has been secret, to show what has been secret. So there is a secret. Discovery, right? Secret. There was something which we don't know. And one of the next meaning is to obtain for first time sight. So something which we couldn't see, and now we're able to see. You know, we all had this moment in our life. Something was invisible, and then from nowhere we are able to see. And the rest of the meanings are quite interesting, Edwin, is to manifest without design, to explore, to examine, and to discover. And the last one, you love it best. Show oneself.
You discovered this. I brought up the name. I figured out the name myself because it was covering actually what my process is. Okay. Herontdekken, Rediscover. So this is spot on. Before we can discuss this in more detail and what your journey is, can you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what your business is?
Sure. So I was born in Bulgaria and spent all my life there for the first 20 years of my life. So done the high school, the university. And interesting fact is that after uni, I decided I received invitation from one of my best friends that time. And she said, would you like to come to London? And I think what really my fascinating journey began, it was actually in England. So I moved to England, I started working there, and really love that country. You know, like I've learned and I've received so much from that country. So with the time, currently I can say that I'm a proud business owner in 2 different countries.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a company which is doing events all around the world with my fiance. And we are in the alternative education business, both in Bulgaria and both also in the UK.
Can you explain what that kind of education that is?
Yeah, sure. So most people have heard about personal development. And I have to tell you that personal development and alternative learning, it gave me much more than my first education.
Why is that?
That's a good question. You know, I consider my life on 2 different kind of voyage, a journey. And the first one was my first 26 years of my life, where life felt, I don't know if the viewers or the listeners have ever felt where their life is like they are pushing a big heavy stone on a hill and they have to push it and this life feels heavy, right? You're in an environment where you're not happy, but you're sitting there, you're staying there. Maybe you're learning something which doesn't fulfill you, or doing job which you hate, and just life feel heavy. And the alternative education, what really helped me is to dive deep in why I do what I do.
Before going into that, how did you feel in that job until you were 26?
I was feeling like a misfit.
Misfit in which way?
I was just feeling like, like I'm sure about viewers and the listeners that, they go to sometimes to environment where they feel like, I'm not sure if I'm fitting here. So misfit is to not fit somewhere. And I discover or rediscover that we were not born to fit in. We were born to stand out.
You or we?
We, as human, we are not born to fit in. We are born to stand out. Stand out means, to allow yourself to stand out of the crowd, to stay out of the norms. Okay? And to come back to your question is that the alternative education helped me so much to find my loving partner, which to be a husband soon.
I know.
To feel fulfilled, to make one of my dreams, or many of my dreams come true, to work and manage a company which is turning over 100 million revenue before my 30s. And to be able to discover what are the values which are running my life, what are the motives, and that I have to go to alternative education.
Yeah. We come back to that later.
Yes.
What was your... No, before I start, ask the question. So what was your discovery, actually, after you were 26?
Okay. Wow, that's a great question. So, you know what? I was very unhappy when I was 26, up to 26. I was doing so much I was working so hard to fit in an environment which I didn't like. And life was feeling really like terrible. And I was covering with big smile and I'm pretending everything is fine, doing 3 jobs so I can have enough money to go on holidays and show off. But I wasn't happy. So the discovery came on Christmas Day, 2015. I was sitting at home after Christmas dinner and I opened YouTube. And in YouTube, there's many stories like mine. You open and it is your favorite Oprah Winfrey, who had amazing guests. And that guest was Tony Robbins at that time. I've never knew who was Tony Robbins was until that moment. So I would say at Christmas, sometimes miracles are born. And so watch Oprah and Tony Robbins, I felt so connected to that conversation. And my discovery came that I have a funny story, just a bracket that after I watched Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey, the marketing team started following me everywhere I go, YouTube, Google, you see like Tony Robbins is coming to London. So I bought one of his tickets, I went to his event, and I felt for the first time in my life that my life is a pool. I'm motivated to do what I want to do. I know who I am, and I knew which direction I'm going. Where life before that, it was about how can I fit in? How can you like me? How she can like me? So it was a broken mirror, trying to fit different values of people, trying to fit different environments, and being different person, very unauthentic.
What you just mentioned with you was with Christmas. When I stopped my job in 2018, there I have a similarity. I also got in contact with personal development, self-development, education in different way. I mean, I had a lot of trainings and education on sales, on management skills, on very practical skill trainings. They were not bad, they were good for the job. And then I got in contact with also Tony Robbins events. And they showed up. And being honest, in the last 20 years during my job, I had never heard of this guy. I had no clue. So my first feeling was, did I live under a stone or something like that? Can you explain what this guy is for the listeners or viewers who have no idea who Tony Robbins is? Because if you are in a job in a rat race daily, very often we think that a lot of people do personal development, but I think a lot of people don't. Can you explain briefly who he is and what he is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for that. And if you guys never went to check who Tony Robbins is, I recommend you stop this podcast right now, pause it, go Google it, save the link, and watch this guy. This guy is #1 American coach and global coach in the world. In my opinion, Tony Robbins is the one who put the self-development word on the market. And he has worked with Olympics people. The last 5 USA president is the owner of 140 companies. And this guy has dedicated his life for you, the listeners and the viewers, to have an outstanding life and to live the life of your dreams. Yeah. And he says very often that you're not born to fit in, to stand out. And what Tony Robbins does is teach us how to have that outstanding life we all deserve. So I recommend to the listeners, just go and check who he is. And I think that's the best thing I can serve your customers and listeners.
It was Christmas. You were 26 and you saw him. Was that a special moment in life? Not the fact that you saw this, but was there something going on? Because you said you didn't fit in.
Yes.
What happened to you that moment? Not that you saw the video, but was there a special event in your life happening at that moment?
That's a very deep question. Well, there was a lot of things going on. I started my job when I was 16, so I think I was just hitting that 10 years of work experience, and I wasn't happy where I am. I was exchanging my time for money, doing many jobs. I wasn't happy with my relationship. I wasn't happy with my job. I wasn't happy where I am. I didn't know who I am that time. So is it really worth it to stay in the UK? So that time I was thinking, I think I should open an online business on my own. So I was just purchasing I just done some purchase to see if this, let's say, stuff is a good quality, and I was looking to open my own business, and I think I was looking for a change. So I was not happy. There was many things. I was just not satisfied with all the things I was doing. But as I said earlier, life wasn't a pull, it was push. And I think that dissatisfaction was making me to look for a new thing, to discover something else.
And what did you discover then? Or is that no? Let's one step back. You followed his training,
Yeah,
the
so
event?
went to his event, and I'm entering this room. I'm writing book about this. I'm entering this room, and there's 7,000 crazy people from 100 and I think 50 countries that time, which are jumping. There's a loud music, and I said, "What is going on here?" And I think Tony was the first and maybe number one coach who actually helped you to clear all your mess in your head through a special technique called neuro-linguistic programming, which get all your limiting beliefs, which we all have, all your global beliefs like all the men are shit, all the women are terrible, all the rich people are this, right? This is a global belief which are absolutely deserving us, right? And when we have this belief, is those beliefs are running our life. So I realized I have a lot of shit in my head, which was making me do what I do. So I start looking, discovery, what are the programs running in my mind?
And you figured it out?
Yeah, figure out that our environment is conditioning us.
Yeah.
So if someone tell you when you are 5, you're very stupid, you might have believed him. In my environment was like, oh, I grew up without my mother. I'm not enough, so I have to compensate. I have to do more than others to show that I'm good enough so I can receive love.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good strategy. And I have to pay the price, and that's how we met.
Yeah. What was the price you paid? Before you're going to answer that, I come back to that question.
Okay.
I also followed an event of Tony.
Okay.
The idea was to go there. But there was something going on in the world called COVID. So we're not able to go. So we got a virtual version. We went to a hotel room for 4 days. The following event, there was a time difference. And I experienced the same as you. There are a lot of strategy in there. And that helped me a lot to give myself direction. But it also, and being honest in that, I learned a lot about myself, about how your body is working, how your mind is working, what's good for you. And what I experienced myself is that you also have to listen to yourself. What's good for you? This is for 7,000 or 12,000 or 100,000 people. He's presenting it. And it helps a lot because it's so much newer for everybody. What I figured out myself is you also have to listen for yourself, what fits you. But believe that the methodology he is teaching or sharing, it works.
Absolutely.
But take out of it what's important for you.
Absolutely.
Coming back to the question, what happened in your life? The reason why we met yesterday.
Whew, that's a deep question again. I got to pay a price.
What was the price
And
you
the
paid?
price was very heavy. Running your life unconscious and from limiting belief, it won't take you very far. Usually, in psychology, they explain there are certain traumas we experience when we are small and which create a certain mass in our life. And those mass are not your true personality. So the trauma, in number one, it helps you in the beginning, in that moment. Let's say you were very young, 3 years old, something happened in your family, and you created a certain behavior. You did something. And every time life brings you danger, you were bringing that thing. So eventually become part of you unconsciously. However, we as a human, we are so much more, which I love the name of the podcast, to rediscover. We are not one thing. And the word tells us that we have to be a great at work or great mother, or you cannot be both. You have to be one. And trying to fit what the world tells us, right? It didn't work. It didn't work. So I have to pay a huge price. And the price was my health of these beliefs I grew up that, okay, if you want to be very successful, you need to work very hard and stuff like that. But I will ask the listeners, why do you do what do you do? If you're a woman, do you put your makeup because you feel like, oh, I love myself, so I would like to take care of myself? Or you putting a makeup because I don't feel pretty, so I want to mask up? So in psychology, we learn that the mask, that particular pattern, there's nothing wrong, but it's only one side of you. And that's why I love the name of your podcast, is to rediscover that there is something more. So when you start running your life from one mask, you are paying a price, right? And that time, what was going on in my mind unconsciously, and Tony and many other great mentors, which was very fortunate for me to know, helped me to realize that I was feeling not good enough because I was growing up without mother. My family decided to divorce when I was 2, even earlier, and my mom continued her life with, another man, and had I have another 2 beautiful brothers from my mother's second marriage. So, but in that moment, maybe 2 years old, Totka, I thought I'm not good enough because some people has to, let's say, 2 parents. And at that time, I felt like I have one.
And was that in your conscious mind or unconscious mind?
Unconscious at that time. So Tony and many other, obviously Tony is the main person who helped me to go in that journey, and I don't think there's anyone better than him. But there is also another amazing mentors out there who helped me to actually work on one-to-one personally. So I realized that...
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I realized that my motives were of not feeling good enough and trying to compensate. So I'll do 3 jobs. I will do 20 studies just to tell people, look, I've done so much and you're not doing so much, so I'm better than you. Yeah. But the foundation was not good enough. Where now, the way I do stuff was, I'm good enough, and that's why I deserve to study. That's why I deserve to know better. So I ask the listeners or the viewers, like, why do you do what you do? Do you go to work and you work hard to show others that, oh, I'm an amazing person, look, I've made it? Do you really need the approval of others? Because I think the most important opinions is when you go to bed or when you look in the mirror, what do you think about yourself? Yeah. So the price I pay, it was a burnout. Burnout where there was many messages which were coming. Like Oprah Winfrey says, one of her interviews is like, life always talks to you.
Yeah. So you said, I was about to answer what was the price you paid.
Yeah.
You shared it with me up front.
Correct.
I really appreciate that you show that vulnerability to share with the listeners. And you got the burnout. It's also kind of people are ashamed about that. What you said is, I experienced the same. I think you were much further than I was in the burnout.
It's not competition.
No, it's not competition to discuss. It's not a competition. I'm happy not a competition. I was almost there. I was exhausted. My battery was almost empty. What you said, your body or your mind, or you get signals up front. Yes. Just to share with the listeners and the viewers, that people recognize, because we discussed that we want to share with the world, not to heal the burnout, because we're going to discuss how you did that. Yes. And what I did is one of the things is the Rediscover podcast, to share what I did. Mm-hmm. To help people to recognize what the symptoms, what the signals are from the body and the mind, to prevent, because it's not nice having it. What were the signals you got?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Up front?
Yes.
Can you name a few?
Yes. I really like what this opera was saying. It's about that life talks to us all the time, and it comes first in whispers. And when you're not here, the voice of the universe, God, whatever you believe in, comes louder. And when you don't hear it, there's a brick coming in your head. So when the whisper were coming, I was ignoring them. When their voice was coming, ignoring them. So life have to broke me up, where I had to ask deeper questions. So few of the things I ignore was, first, it was the immune system going down.
And how did it show up? How did it?
So the cause, I think, is more important, is that I overwork. How many of you, the listeners, if you're overworking, the way we are created as human, sooner or later you have to take the break, right? So I overwork. I have to do many jobs to show that, I am good enough, right? And you see the causes, and the consequences are our life is run by invisible forces, which are our beliefs and our motives. Mm. So I would say the causes, the results, but I think I encourage the listener to think about why they do what they do. But some of the signals, because they're very important, and unfortunately, me and you, with you, we're fortunate, but there are people who probably pay a huge price. Yeah. And
so that was just something in your mind? Mm-hmm. Was there a voice saying something? Or did you have physical problems? How did it show up?
Yeah.
How did it...
Well, the first one was my immune system went down. So I was after I finished working in a farm in England, I went for a student exchange my first year in uni. I worked very hard and the condition was not good. So, and I was overworking to prove myself. So if people do this, I will do double, right? And it's not a good strategy. You don't need to show off. You don't need to prove you're good enough. You're already good enough. Build it from there. Because you're good enough, you want to do good, right? So what happened is that when I went home, I went 1 week on bed, not able to talk or walk. That was when I was 21. When I was 33, around 30 to 33, the big one came out. And what were the other symptoms was my nose was bleeding a lot. First, it was a little bit every time, and my nose was bleeding a lot because I wasn't sleeping. So, and where the not sleeping was coming from? It started from 8 years old.
Yeah. Hold on, before you could...
Yeah.
You said your nose was bleeding.
A lot, yeah. Because I wasn't sleeping.
Because you wasn't sleeping?
Yes.
So your body was telling something.
Yes.
Was telling the bleeding of your nose. Mm-hmm. It could have been also in your brain, bleeding. So weren't you lucky in that case?
I was lucky at the end when I think what saved me, there were a few things which had to happen for me and you to have this conversation because the burnout is something which people is not, I think it's so new, is a neurological thing which goes on in your system, which is very difficult to discover.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
so the bleeding, I had it since I was child. Every time I will not sleep, so I want to study more. And because I grew up without mother, I was taking the role of my mother at home. So what I will do at home, I will cook and clean when other kids were playing. That means there was no time to study. So I will have problem in school. So for me to start compensating and get good in school, be accepted, and I don't know how many of you, when you were in school, you wanted to be accepted by your peer group, all of us. So I learned not to be able to compensate, not to sleep. So my nose bleeding started very early age, and every time I will not sleep, my nose will bleed. And I ignored it for more than 20 years. Until one day, my brain just shut down.
Yeah. And you were home, you were sleeping.
So when the brick came out, I was having an event in Los Angeles. I was doing my coaching certification program. And I was just coming back from LA. So I went home, and that time I was living with a single mother and her 2 kids. And I came home, and she said, "Why are you walking like you're on your knees?" And I said, "No, I'm walking straight." She said, "No, you're walking on your knees." And I'm like, "No, I'm walking straight." She said, "Come and sit on the sofa." So I don't know what's going on. My brain is switched off, and I already start to not be able to use my body. And that was the worst signal.
Yeah.
This is where it really got bad, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember I asked her, because the burnout, you're missing vitamin B12, D3, as you know.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I used to hate beef. I asked her, "Do you have a beef and mushrooms?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Could you cook something for me?" So she did. And this is where I knew there was something really wrong.
I come back on how did you do the healing?
Yeah.
When you broke down for the second time, you had a company? Or you were working for a company?
Yes. So I used to run Success Resources UK, which, for those who doesn't know who Success Resources is the biggest seminar provider. Is a $100 million company a year revenue, and they're the one who bring Tony Robbins to the world. Tony Robbins doesn't do his events except of America. So if you see Tony Robbins Brazil, Poland, Dubai, England, that was Success Resources for 20 years.
Yeah. Actually, what Success Gids is now doing in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Yeah. But they do it for the rest of the world.
Yes, and Success Kids are one of the partners of Success Resources. So Success Resources have all these other providers, seminar providers globally. So they're partners. In order for you to be the number one in the world, there's no bigger company than one. You got to work with other great companies, right? It's a business lesson here, right? So I was working at Success Resources, running the UK office, and working with amazing people like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham, #1 marketing expert in the world. They call him the 4.0 billionaire guy.
Yeah. Guys, listeners, the names she just mentioned, just look it up. I will mention name below the podcast, if possible. Look up those names.
Yeah.
For me, there were new names. I know them now.
Yes.
They bring a lot. So just continue. So you worked for the company.
Yes. And because of all this mentor, I was able with my team to make our office #1 in the world. So they had 7 main offices, and then these 40, 50 global, like Success Kids. There was another all around the world in Asia and other places. And You know, I think what really also saved my life at that time, it was because I was educated and I was in proximity with these great mentors. Okay, so I was running this big office. We had more than 500 events a year. I would go to Singapore, and next day I wake up in another country. Sometimes we do 3-4 countries in a week. I think just my office done 100 events. So if we have 356 days a
Yeah.
year, I
So
think
you worked hard, long days, time differences,
Yes,
lot of pressure. I mean, they expect high performance.
yes,
I recognize that.
yes,
Growing, more targets,
yes.
high performance, the best to
Sounds
build.
familiar?
Sounds familiar. And the company I worked for, it's like Champions League in football. It's the highest level that's possible. You always want to win. I think that's not bad. So that happened to you. Then you broke down. You went home.
Yes.
What did you experience then from colleagues, partners, whatever? What happened after that?
A hard question. So when I really went in the burnout, I had this nose bleeding all the time. I had to sleep 12 hours a day. I pay, maybe in my first week, I paid 5,000 euro for checks, and no one could identify what was wrong with me, right? And so what I was doing most of the time, I was sleeping. And I would have all these country and offices I mentioned to you, working with them, and my phone will be no-stop, like, you know, people calling me from China, Malaysia, anywhere around the world with different time zones. I have to leave that company so fast because I got scared I'm going to receive a stroke,
Yeah.
right? So I left literally in months and a half. I done Tony Robbins event, the European events, which were in the middle of the year, and I said I'm leaving to my boss or the owner of the company. I went home. Now I have all this free time, and my phone doesn't ring anymore.
So nobody called you anymore?
Nobody calls.
How did it make you feel?
I could tell you this, you know, like having one vehicle which was meeting your needs, like for you was the company you were working
Yeah.
for, and you were feeling significant, loved, appreciated. You have security, variety of the targets, of the people you're meeting. So that vehicle, when it disappears, you feel like you have a crush on identity. And for people to not call you is like getting that loving connection we all live for. It feels like my life doesn't have a meaning anymore. And I suffer a lot through the physical pain, but emotional pain, or like, I ask myself some question. I ask myself, why people not calling? Is that what my meaning meant to these people?
So, and what was, according to you, the reason that they didn't call?
Well, in the beginning, it was just pain. Like you're going suffering, you focus on yourself, you're thinking like, why people are not calling me? Obviously, other people doesn't have burnout, so they have their life, their families, their targets, so their life moves on. And for you, you're sitting between 4 walls. You have this significance of running the biggest company in the world, doing X or Y or Z. And then you are like in a prison. You're like 4 walls. You stay with yourself. You have all the time in the world, and you start asking this deep question, which you don't want to face some of the truth. So the truth was maybe, number one, people live their life. You know, your life moves on. What did you build? You know, you ask yourself, I will encourage the listener to ask this question. If you imagine today is your last day at work, and you cannot associate yourself more with your work, who you are.
Yeah.
But you cannot say I'm engineer or I'm a director. Who you are when you're not at your work.
It's very interesting that you say that, when I left the company, and I explained that in my first podcast, the way I left the building. I was not Elvis left the building, that's an expression, no. When I left the building...
In your last day?
In last day, I experienced the same. Almost nobody called me.
And why do you think was that?
Because some people called, and I can come back to your question. Some people called me. They want to have a lunch with me. I had time enough. And normally those lunches were about targets, escalations, revenue, growth, whatever. And now it's about business. And now it was personal. So those people were very interested in my personal situation. What happened? Why do I do it? What I experienced and what I rediscovered that moment, and people warned me or told me, the moment you leave, you are nothing anymore. Like you said, you are associated with your role, not with your person.
Yes.
So I was associated with the role I got in the company, in the market. And I don't blame anybody. No, don't blame the people, because you build a business relation to grow the business for both companies. That's what people do. So, and sometimes you get friends together, and you have a personal, more private relation. And they are sometimes I have business friends that are now personal friends forever. So, what happened is that they saw that I left, but they had to continue their business. So they got build a relationship with the guy who took over my role later on. So I think the reason is they do it for the business and not for the person. And exactly what you say, you are associated with your role and not with your name or with your person. So I rediscover myself later on, to be the person and not the role.
Beautiful.
And that's also what I appreciate in the conversation we had yesterday together, to express your feelings, your ideas around this. So that's great. Looking back to that situation, what's the lesson you learned about that?
Amazing questions. Obviously, I would like to be really helpful for the listeners and the viewers, is that I will ask myself, if I'm now not in my role, especially for executives, like people who, or nurses, or whoever it is, right? Who will be still around me, right? Who are the important people in my life? Because I'll ask you a question. When you leave, who was around you? Who are those people who stay in your life? Can you just give me a couple of examples?
Yeah. My girlfriend, my children, my parents, my brother, one or two very good friends. They were always there, in good times and in bad times.
And how much time were you spending with them when you were working for one of the biggest company in the world?
There is an 80-20 rule. They say everything is 80-20. I think it was 90-10 for me. 90% on the business and 10% on the family.
And I will ask you, okay, for this 10%, what would you consider from 1 to 10 was the quality of that relationship with your kids, with your wife? Because I think it's not always just the time we spend with them, but also are we bringing our work and stress at home? What quality we can give to our family?
I think the quality was good. They never complained, and I discussed it with them afterwards. Because of they understand, because of what I did, they could do everything. My girlfriend was really running the show at home in a positive way. The time was limited, and sometimes was quality time. But I also can tell you that sometimes I was physically there, but mentally somewhere else. So I was at the table, they told me something, and I was thinking about the presentation I had to give tomorrow morning.
Okay.
In the office or whatever. or about the plan for next year, or about whatever. So sometimes I literally missed things in that case. So was I there 100% conscious? Was I there in the moment? No, I was not. Physically. And I rediscovered,
Yes.
back to the title, now I do it more. And I learn from all kind of personal education, developments, how to do that. Being in the moment, switch off my phone, although it's something difficult, be there. And if I feel stress or I feel I'm distracted, I know there's too much going on in my head. It took me a while. That's the reason why I started the podcast, to share with people, everybody who did something in my life. And that is why we didn't work together, like we explained. But your stories has so many similarities, and especially because you were in the personal education business, there's more to gain there for me and for other people than people think. So, yeah, good question from your side to me. I was not there mentally. How was it for you? Physically, mentally?
Well, after you're running one of the biggest, sorry, not one of the biggest company in the world in that particular industry, and then you are at home, not able to work anymore so much, trying to be able to sleep for 12 hours, and people not calling you. You have all this time. So one of the positive things of the burnout was that I had all this time. I had all this time to face some very uncomfortable truth. And I realized I had only one or two people from all the hundreds of thousand companies and people I used to work with. There were only two people who actually really, really, really like checking on weekly or monthly basis. Obviously, some people texted, how are you, and stuff like that, but their life moved on. But mine felt like stop, especially for the first 2 years. And it was so painful. I cannot explain that having that significance, having that fulfillment of doing what you love doing, and then you go in the box. It's like this Olympic who is dreaming to get the Olympic gold medal. All their life they work to get there. And you get there, but you haven't considered to take enough break. Even God made the world in 6 days, and then 7 he rested. So I think who we are not rested. And when this happened, I had all this time, and I faced my demons. I faced the deepest fears in my life, and I faced maybe somewhere the most important people in my life who were there. I didn't give them the honor and the attention they deserve, and I was wasting so much time on things which were not important. Yeah. So that was big thing to swallow, a big thing to swallow.
They call it, we were trapped in a rat race. And then and I don't say it's bad. Some people really have a fulfillment there, are happy, wealthy.
Yes.
But you're in the rat race of working hard, getting paid, working even harder, getting paid even more. But there's a rat race. You can step out because you pay your mortgage, you have your car, you have your holiday, you have your children education, whatever. So it's hard to realize that. If you step out, then you realize, because then you can take a distance and see what's happening. That's what I did. When you were at home, you realized this. How did you heal yourself? How did you rediscover yourself and get back on track? Because otherwise you could not have sit on the bench here.
Absolutely.
What did you do?
Well, after spending a lot of money on the doctors and everybody except for the neurologist telling me you probably have a burnout, no one could help me, you know. Maybe I just didn't discover the right expert, but I went to any like 5, 6 experts, and they were saying, "Oh, your measurements are well, there's nothing wrong." So I have to look for something out of the box. And you know, my fiance, as you met him, he grew up with a mother who is a pastor, and many times when I would feel sick, he would just tell me, touch me and say in Jesus' name you're fine, and I'll feel better, you know. And one of the healing became that after not all, I was isolated. I think universe, whoever you believe, it isolate me, and it make me rethink and prioritize my life. So after he was doing this stuff, I was asking myself, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about he telling me in Jesus' name you're fine, and then I would just feel better. I don't know, is it after suggestion, as you said, or whatever it is, but I say I want to know better. So I started going to church. You know, you don't have to be religious. You can do a meditation, yoga, whatever is your way. I'm not putting, you know, like that, you know, has to be your belief. But for me, it was what helped me. So I started going to church, and I realized a lot of the personal development thing actually started from preachers who decided to go and talk to people, not in church, you know, to reach more people. So I've learned there that the priorities we've been creating to live is as Oprah Winfrey say, I don't care what is your religion, I don't care what you believe in, but if you don't have a spiritual practice in the morning, I know what is your future holding for you. So I'm not telling you what to believe, but what is that thing you're doing, right? And for me, I realized that, okay, I need to have first, before I meet my fiance, before I do go to save the world, what do I fill my cup in, you know? And Oprah Winfrey talks a lot about that. So I changed my priorities. My priority before was, as we discussed earlier, I spend 99% of my time at work on my mission, right?
And what is now your priority?
My priorities is I wake up in the morning, I spend that special connection with me and the Creator, whatever you do. As I said, I don't want to impose you mine. I spend 1 hour. Sometimes I love it so much that I even go more. So I spend 1 hour, I fill my cup, I have this special connection, I practice gratitude. Then my next step is my family. Because as you said, when shit happen, no one help you. Those who stay around you was your family. So who should deserve the second priority? I'm not talking about the time you spend with them, but the quality. Priority, they are before something else. You know, you go before the economic class, right? So they have to be priority. So I put my fiancé as my priority. So before I get my work on my phone and my day to take, to start, I go and say to my fiancé, good morning, I love you, how are you, all these things. And then after that, my day begins. And the last one, which I think for overachievers, is schedule rest in your calendar.
That's a good one.
Schedule rest in your calendar. Every Olympic person, in their plan, they have rest days. They have breaks. If you don't do it, you're always going to say, oh, it's not enough, I'm not doing enough. And this is how you burn yourself. Have you heard of those Olympics where they work all their life and after that they receive a heart attack, a stroke, or something because they didn't schedule a break?
It's funny that you say that because other guests in the podcast before, and also a couple of ones that will be live later on, said take rest. Do nothing. Go to the silence for a moment, a couple of minutes, or so. Be in the moment. So you say the same without knowing, because the rest of the podcast was in Dutch until now. So it's very interesting that you say that. It can't be a coincidence that I didn't took a rest while I worked.
Yes.
I worked from this morning in the afternoon till
And
the
what
afternoon.
make you not take a rest?
My agenda was decided by the company, by customers, by colleagues, by partners. Even though my secretary did her best, sometimes it was not possible. Sometimes I asked for a break, was not possible. But also my mind. I mean, I want to be the best. I want to perform. I want to deliver. So it is something also in me without putting in the boundaries.
And thank you for being honest with that. Thank you.
And I almost get emotional saying this, feeling
Please-
this now, because I
please
see it
do
in front of me what happened those days. Although it brought me a lot, and I say that I have to say that more often.
What make you emotional?
That has to do with my values. That freedom and autonomy is very important for me, and if I tell now that my agenda was fully booked and I see it in front of me, calls from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And I did it myself sometimes, but to cope with all the topics. And if I look now at my agenda, there's much more space. So what gave me the emotion? That I saw the fully booked agenda and not have the time to sit back, relax, and give my mind a break. Give me a break. And I was continuing. And so that's what I said. My body was empty. The battery was empty. I was not as bad as you had, but I see a lot of symptoms. Like we discussed, I had some, how do you call it, itches or whatever on my hands. And after I stopped, they were gone in 6 weeks.
Wow.
So my body
so
was...
what did you have in your hands?
Oh, I don't know the English word. But it's kind
You
of...
can say it in your language
Yeah,
because the listeners...
it's vratten. Een paar.
Okay.
A few.
Like eczema.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
They didn't grow, but they were not important for my body. Not a priority. So all the energy went to something else. I had some hurt my legs, my back, my shoulder. So my body was giving a kind of pushback, like you said. I didn't listen to it. My girlfriend said, if you don't take care of yourself now, I have to bring you somewhere else in 6 pieces of wood.
When was that? When she said that?
I think 2 years before I stopped.
Okay.
So there was a
So
signal.
There's a big lesson here. Is
Yeah.
like we are so blessed to have our partners, and there is no one else who spends so much time and knows you so well. And when they give feedback, which we don't want to hear, we usually feel like, oh, this person doesn't understand me. She doesn't love me. She doesn't know what is to run this company, that I'm feeding the family, blah, 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 blah.
I agree.
And that's why relationship is the institution which is the most attacked one. That's why the word is created for family not to last together. Because that person is there to protect your back, to see what you don't see. That's why, you know, the thing for the horses, they say that, would you like to share with your audience about the horses thing? That one horse can live, let's say, I don't remember the exactly ton, right? Like they can live, let's say, 1 ton, but if it's 2 horses together, they can do 9 or something like that. I don't remember, so apologize if I'm not saying the right numbers.
So
but
what you mean is that if we're two together, they are stronger.
they're stronger.
Yeah.
That's why the family institution is the most attacked one, and is the one which you need to put a second priority, even before you work.
And also, we both learned if they give a signal, don't ignore it.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
for example, yeah, but I bring in the money. Or, yeah, it's very important. Or
How would you bring the money if you're dead?
Yeah, you're right. Or I have to do that meeting, or I have to go there. The company is still running. The company you work for is still running, also without you.
Exactly.
So the
So we're not that important as we think.
we are not. We think we are,
Yeah.
even though it's your own company. You are not that important. So we discuss the signals your body gives, your immune system, and that's a result of a long, ongoing process. And we discuss food and coffee and whatever. That's something completely different. We can spend a whole podcast about that together. I think. What it's doing with your body, with your immune system, at the end it will break down. It will give a signal. So I think we both experience. Listen to your family. Listen to the signals in your body.
Yes.
Don't ignore them, because it's at the end it will kill you. You kill your body, your mind, your everything. Now you're here healthy. You're,
Praise the Lord.
I think, and you gave a very nice example. Hey, for you, God and your religion is very important.
I would say not religion, if you don't mind. Just
you
for
can
this
correct me.
is not the religion, is the connection of that. Whatever you believe, even it's your intuition, it's your creator, is the universe. That's something which has put you in this planet. What is it? Are you spending, let's say if your mother has created you, your mother or father wants the best for you. So is that thing which we are existing here for, right? It's so important, and doesn't matter how you call it, it's so, so important. If you don't believe me, believe Oprah Winfrey, right?
Yeah.
Right? I think so it is so important. But I wouldn't call it religion, because religion was created to control people.
Yeah.
So there was, I can explain there for a lot, but it was more than 1,500 years. So I think religion is not a good word.
No.
Yeah.
Based on everything you experience,
Yes.
we started the podcast that you explain what Rediscover was.
Yes.
And I think that's very clear and very spot on what it is. I want to share, I want to inspire people. I don't want to warn them, but I want to give them tools and my experience, what other people can do for you in your life, whether it's your family, experts, specialists, whatever it may be, personal education programs, gurus in the world. So that is my goal at the moment with the podcast, but it looks like that
Beautiful.
this rediscovery is going that direction. And I feel very happy and very relaxed about that. It gives a very good feeling. What is your goal after what you experience in everything that we just discussed?
Okay. Very interesting question. Okay. I think our goal was, what is the podcast of your name? The name of your podcast is Rediscover, is to find who you are. And that, no matter if you're working for the biggest company, if you're a cleaner, or wherever you are, that is a particular moment. If you love what you do, you can stay there, but you're so much more. You can be a father, a son, and that's what psychotherapy says, right? You can be son, father, business owner. You don't have to be one thing. And when it becomes one thing, I think this is where the problem comes. So at the moment, I think goal is to put the right priorities in the right places, as I mentioned earlier. I think that's my main goal.
Yeah.
And everything else comes from those priorities.
And the saying that you say, I want to serve people to the highest level, Is it business-wise, private, personal? How
Well,
does-
put it that way. Let's say I'm on the moment in a certain age. Let's say I'm 36. I'm to be married. And also I have my two businesses, which are providing alternative education. So we work with Tony Robbins, my fiance Moses Naloka, who is also doing events in Netherlands and other countries, is to serve people. But what were my priorities? In the morning, I spend time to meditate, whatever you call it. And then my second priority is to have a family, right? So I'm 36, and now I'm like, okay, I want to do this 10,000 people event, like who I used to be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, what is your second priority? Is your family? Is your calendar, if you open your calendar, where is your family schedule? Right? So I see it's my wedding schedule, right? And all this stuff, we gotta put intention, we gotta put it in our calendar, right? So my priority now is, my family. And then that's healthy. Then I would love to serve thousands of millions of people, do the biggest event in Bulgaria, in London, with the best speakers around the world, introduce what we discover to other people, give back to others. So we can have the quality of life we were born to. And then schedule, take a break. So I would like to help people, but I think while you're helping, make sure you are authentic and you actually live what you talk, right?
That's, I think, very nice.
Yes. Thank
Before
you.
Before we close the session, this episode, what are, with all the experience you got now in your life, everything we just discussed about your company, consciousness, whatever, the burnout, the healing, what are the 2 tips, advices you want to give to the listeners and viewers based on your experience?
Okay, could you ask this question in another way? Like, my question is it to people who already are going through a similar situation, to anyone, or?
What we said, we share this story together.
Yes.
And on purpose I say together, because we have the connection here that we experience a lot of things together. Based on that, you don't want other people to go that way because it's hard. You learn a lot about it, but why do it that way, and why not give people some tips that they prevent to make the wrong decision, to be in the wrong place, and to get burned out for whatever reason. Not always work, it can always a combination of work, private, or other. So what would be the 2 tips from your side? I think you already mentioned some of that. To give to the listeners, to serve them, to help them prevent becoming in a burnout.
Okay, how not to go in a burnout. Okay, well, I'll be very simple, and I think is going back to the basics. Number 1, like, some people love to sleep, but not so everybody. You and me didn't have that opportunity. We choose to work instead of sleep. So for me, I realize sleep at the moment is scheduling my calendar, and I am actually, like, I recommend everybody do the 8-hour sleep, and I can back that up with scientific study.
I trust you because I figured out now after 20 years, 4 hours sleep almost, I do now automatically 7.5 hours for me the optimum. 8 is too long, 7 is too short. Go to bed at 11. I automatically wake up at 6:30. That's 7.5 hours. So I think that's a very good advice. If from the Rediscover Yourself angle, what would you advise to people?
Ask for help. Ask for help. Let's say you are experiencing something, or you are not. What do I mean by ask for help? Look for mentors. you know, like all the greatest people, like Olympics people, I use again, they are not doing one thing only. You might see them running, but they're going to the gym, they're working on their mind, they're looking after their diet, they have a scheduled thing to rest, and all these things. So I would say our life is not one particular area, right? It's like go deep, rediscover yourself, look for mentors, look for people who can better the quality of your life. And no matter how successful you are, there's always next level for you. There's always next level. If you're making 1 million, you can make 1 billion. If you have 2 hours with your wife quality time, maybe you can have 3. There's always the next level. But sometimes we read what discover means is we don't know it's there until that person comes and shows it to you, right? Yeah. So I think that's the two things.
I think those are 2 great tips from 2 different angles. Totka, I really want to thank you, and I really appreciate having you in my podcast. For me, it was a very interesting and open and honest discussion about the topics we rediscovered 24 hours ago together. So thank you of having you here. Thank you for being so open and honest. I wish you all the best with your health, with your career, with your family.
Thank you.
With your personal goals in your life you just shared.
Thank you.
Thank you. And listeners, lovely people, this was another episode of Rediscover, the Herontdekken podcast. A very interesting one where we went into the background of burnout, but also personal development, self-development, coaching, look for someone else, the family. So very interesting. I should almost say listen to it twice because there's so much good stuff in this session. I'm so grateful having Totka here. Thank you very much again. And everybody, thank you very much, and I will keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you.
I
Great.
hope I serve you and I serve your audience.
Yeah, great.
Dankjewel voor het luisteren naar de Herontdekken podcast. De podcast over de zoektocht naar een nieuwe koers na 20 jaar werken in de corporate wereld. Over de zoektocht op zowel persoonlijk, professioneel als financieel vlak. En het vinden van een balans daarin. De podcast waarin ik in gesprek ga met mensen die mij geholpen hebben in die zoektocht. Heeft deze aflevering je weten te inspireren, motiveren en ondersteunen in je reis? Laat het dan weten in de comments hieronder. Deel het met vrienden, bekenden en collega's en abonneer je op mijn podcast, zodat ook jij de volgende aflevering niet zal missen. Als je de vorige aflevering gemist mocht hebben, dan raad ik je aan om zeker de vorige podcast te luisteren. Tot de volgende keer en I'll keep you posted.